Government money is poison money. Always has been. And we're now jacked into a corner where people are going to feel like they have to do this, but you don't. There's other ways to do these things. And everybody has to sit and think about how they can survive and make a living without government handout. And I hope they do.
Good afternoon, everyone. You're going to like the interview we have today. Larry Pierce. You know, we had done an interview about 2 years ago after I reviewed his book, A New Little Ice Age Has Started, looking for reasons why the climate was changing so much, looking into longer cycles than the 11-year cycle. You're looking back at 800-year cycles, 1,200-year, 5,000, 3,600-year cycles, and then how this whole agenda was being pushed for a global tax initiative. And here we are today, again, because we've seen the world spin on a dime. And then also something that we're going to need to rely on is repairing our own devices and homes and bicycles, for example, anything that breaks that normally you would take to have somebody repaired. We're going to have to think about being more self-sufficient in repair and different self-fixes. And he also has the 2 volumes here, The Art of Fixing Things, Part 1, 150 Tips and Tricks to Make Things Last Longer, as well as The Art of Fixing Things, Part 2. But it all revolves right back into this. I personally feel this whole thing we're seeing, this mirage out here and grand play, is because we're at that point now where next year the harvest is going to be so minimal that there'll absolutely be incredible food spike in terms of prices, but also inavailability that would start off the first catalyst for social instability in the cities because of the lack of food. And that's why we're coming together today. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Larry, welcome. Thank you for joining me once again to talk about this very important subject.
Hey, thanks, David. It's always good to talk to you. You don't need the government giving you energy and helping you here. And the governments don't help people. They complicate things. First, they make rules and levy taxes, and they say, oh, okay, we'll give you this to alleviate all that. You know, it becomes more complicated rather than less. In the States, at least, you've got Donald Trump, who's tearing up regulations and throwing them away. That's the only bright spot on the planet that I can see.
Well, that spot just had an eclipse over it, because what happened, and you described there, got completely reversed in the last week.
What happened?
Well, now it's this never-ending stimulus bill where there's a combination of government and private enterprise that have suddenly got the magic bailout, where there's been, promised money into infinitum, where every buyback comes from the government. Every possible entity that could fail gets back. Every bond issuance that's in distress is bailed out. Every treasury issued by the Fed is rebought by the Fed with money and interest toward the American people. It's just ridiculous how much it just backtracked in a single week to save the companies. Oh, but they'll give you $1,200. Great, thanks. How fast people are going to spend that? They're going to be 3 months behind on their bills and they get $1,200. Really? The first $4.5 trillion, they're already talking on the second, third, fourth stimulus bills coming out. I mean, I don't know if it'll be hyperinflated, but they're thinking it might be a total currency reset. And you and I know we disagree greatly on cryptocurrency, but I think the reset is here for some way, shape, or form. I don't know if they'll let it go into hyperinflation, because that would be too detrimental to their positions. But a reset on a different base currency of something of value could be, I don't know, maybe metals, but we don't have enough gold here in the country to do that. So it'd have to be something else to reset it against. They're talking about SDRs would only be an interim step, but I'm wondering what it would be as a reset for value that could be used across the planet.
Well, David, you're way beyond me on the financial stuff, but I see Donald Trump talking about reopening parts of the economy in parts of the country. I think he's right to get people out there in the hinterland working again. But I think we also need to do what my daughter just did. She bailed out of London. Her and her husband bailed out of London. They came out here to this little Gulf island that I live on. They're farming. They're running their London businesses remotely. We got high-speed internet, and they can still do business here that they were doing over there, and they can grow food and put it in the root cellar and on and on. But, the people have got to take the lead. Governments are not going to do it. This thing with that you're talking about, I don't know if it's good or bad or necessary or not, but I do know that we all have to try to disconnect from as much of that world as possible. Get out of the cities, get out of the country, find a way to grow your own food, make your own power or save your own power. That's the first thing, is save your power. Let the bureaucrats try to figure their way around that.
You need to take your own sovereignty back and get off it, because what I'm seeing right now is they're trying to get everybody back onto a full dole system here in the States. They're trying to wrap their arms around you like an octopus with all 8 tentacles to pull you into the grips of government. The amount of food bank distribution, there was, I think it was in California, and I grabbed a couple screenshots of this. The cars was a double lane road going in 2 miles long for people to come through with their cars and get food. I mean, they're creating the modern soup lines with the universal basic income. Now, once we get UBI come in and they got everybody, no jobs, everybody's begging for the money like a little, give them a little bowl of gruel. Please give me a little more money so I can have money just to pay my rent. And then the government swoops in and says, all right, we're going to issue a digital wallet and we're going to put the money in there. It's a new digital Fed coin, and they're going to keep you on this universal basic income. I really personally don't feel we're ever coming back from this again to any way, shape, or form of our old world. Now that everybody's off, if you're at home and you're lucky enough, like your daughter is, to be able to work and still do that, at some places I've seen they're actually starting to give away seed packs, but then in other ones it's like, no, we'll control the food distribution for you. And I've heard there's a push and pull in state legislatures to be able to allow people to grow food in their front yards without destroying it or giving them fines. But then there's a pushback against that. And I'm thinking, all right, what politician in the right mind is going to push back against you growing food at your own house right now? And we're at that point still. I mean, how ingrained and how archaic is this system where people are still squibbling in state legislatures if you can grow vegetables in your front yard? Unbelievable. We need to change.
The people have got to lead on this whole problem. Otherwise, bureaucrats will continue to make rules and make regulations and enslave us even further. You got to just take the bull by the horns, grow your own garden, and hunker down. And government money is poison money. Always has been. And we're now jacked into a corner where people are going to feel like they have to do this, but you don't. There's other ways to do these things. And everybody has to sit and think about how they can survive and make a living without government handout. And I hope they do.
Yeah, I do too, because the way it's being pushed right now, and they've seen how they've gone away from the office space. I think what we traditionally know as an office is finished. Yeah, I really don't think we're going to go back to the offices in the way we did before, since it's already being directed this way. So you don't have to drive with less pollution, and they're already kind of working out a few of the kinks. So whoever stays home and can work now, great. That's going to be your new office. And I can see a whole bunch of these changes right now. You're not flying as much, traveling. I don't think the travel industry is going to come back in any shadow of its former self. I think it's finished for our lifetimes.
Oh, I still want to go to Hawaii, and I can't walk there.
Get out the outrigger canoe. You got to paddle yourself, Larry.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, we can hope that this virus thing, which is, it's a complete black swan event, to have this happen, just pop up out of nowhere, and in 1 or 2 months, basically 2 months, it has reorganized the whole globe. It's amazing, just amazing.
And how prepared are you for the transition into the grand solar minimum? Are you prepared for emergencies? Our friends at My Patriot Supply do have emergency survival food, the 2-week grab-and-go food crate or the 4-week food supply. They also have water filtration and items that you can use yourself to get ready to pack, such as Mylar bags, oxygen packs, things you can use for your own long-term food storage, and a host of different survival items that you might not have thought about in your preparations. Use the Adapt 2030 link in the description box below. And while you're there, take a look at the selection of heirloom seeds, because you are going to have to grow some of your own food moving forward into the Eddie Grand Solar Minimum. Take back your peace of mind by knowing that you're prepared when others might not be. Now, is it a black swan, or was it a planned grand solar minimum grab of the food supply? You see, this is my whole thing in the gray area of trying to understand this event. The debate with the grand solar minimum was saying, yeah, about a year and a half out, they're going to start grabbing control of the food supply and really locking the population down so they can't travel to different destinations on the planet with better food growing conditions, cheaper cost of living, and they're going to lock everybody down, and then they're going to grab control of the food, completely controlled by the military. And you know what we're seeing today is exactly this. So for me, was it really a black swan virus thing, or was it a virus that got out that did get out, but then they're using this and ramping up? Because I didn't expect any of this until at least next year. Maybe they're pouncing on top of this because it's a perfect opportunity without having to create another diversion or distraction. You know, just too coincidental with the timeline being 1 year off. I mean, we're talking thousands of year cycles here. To be 1 year off on what the response would have been for controlling the food supply, it's a little too quirky in my book, a little too coincidental.
Well, thank God America has the posse comitatus laws. They can't use the military inside the U.S. borders to do anything. So the military cannot help that farmer or force that farmer to do anything. What they'll be doing is trying to do it all by stealth with regulations that create social engineering through the administrative state. I just saw an interesting article on CFACT, CFACT.org, about just that, about the new tailpipe emissions rules. They're going to get rid of the Obama rules, which were just crazy, and loosen up the tailpipe rules. Now, of course, the Green Gestapo will go nuts over that. They'll say, oh, well, people are going to die of air pollution. But the flip side of that is because people can now afford to buy a new car because it's not so expensive, lives will be saved because new cars have better safety equipment. So there's always two sides to look at in these things. But there's one thing for sure. The Democrats are into control. The liberals here in Canada are into control. And we must get rid of governments that want to control us, that want to tax us. We need governments that will leave us alone. You know, that's what I think it was Jefferson said, that liberty was the right to be left alone. And that's what we need, is we need to have the right to be left alone.
And barter, trade, buy, sell.
Yeah.
Without having anybody in the middle.
Yeah. That's what liberty is.
So if any of you listening out there do have some other ideas, you know, about things that you're seeing around your area that are working in terms of solutions that we haven't talked about, love to hear your comments and thoughts. And then again, with Larry here, what he has with the new insulation, how that could be coupled with the more modern ag moving forward, because we know there needs to be a lot of changes. If you haven't seen the amount of incredible disturbances in the jet streams and just the weather patterns, the planting season, the growing seasons, completely the harvest season, there's still 5 million acres stranded in the fields that they were trying to get over the last 3 weeks out of the fields from last year. And the USDA was putting that as positive yield in the books. So, yeah, that stranded 5 million acres was counted as positive yield. So when they did the tally for the year of what was in the silos, quote unquote, in the silos, they counted that full 5 million acres out there. And you lose at least 25% when you're harvesting post-season like that. Yeah. They still put full yield in the books there. So who's stirring the pot? So
yeah.
It's going to be thinking local solutions for moving forward.
You sure do. seeds apparently are selling out around the world.
Yeah, and notice the evolution of whenever people start to realize that it's going to be something that could be useful in the future. Now we got seeds sold out. Now we got the complete run on metals. Try to find an ounce of physical gold or silver, and if you do, they're going to charge you sometimes up to 50 to 75% premium. So if it costs $10, they're going to charge you $17.50. Yeah, seeds is next. It's already here. And then what'll be next after that? Canning jars, canning lids, and you can just see it moving forward.
Yeah, we already went and bought some canning jars.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to get ahead of the curve here.
Yeah.
You've got to think ahead. You've got to live ahead of the curve. If you don't, you're going to do without. We actually went and bought a few extra rolls of toilet paper. I mean, I firmly believe that this hysteria over COVID-19 will peter out, and then you'll be able to get all the toilet paper you want. And I hope that all those guys who decided they were going to make their millions on toilet paper get stuck with a garage full of the stuff when it's over.
Yeah, there was a truck down in Georgia, and they pulled it over on the highway. I forget why they pulled it over, way station or something. And they opened it up, and it was an 18-wheeler, a 53-foot container completely full of toilet paper. And they confiscated it on the spot and said, oh, you're hoarding it. The new national initiative here, we're allowed to confiscate anything. And there were people driving around with N95 masks and had masks in their warehouses, but they were proper sellers onto persons who did construction and whatnot. They went in and just raided the warehouses and took their stuff. They said, oh, you have too many, or you're hoarding. But wait, we supply all the construction people around the entire city here in New York. Oh, too bad. You didn't give us those masks. You know, and now it's turning into something a little bizarre where they're stopping trucks on the roads and just saying, hey, what's in there? Oh, you have too much of it. It's ours now.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. They should let the marketplace sort that out too. You know, talk about social distancing. Well, if your neighbors are hoarding toilet paper, you ought to socially distance yourself from them.
And it's a strange one we live in, but my whole thing is it's still about the food, Larry. It's still about the food. I really feel that the crop losses are going to be so noticeable next year that it would have stirred a bunch of social movement in itself. Because you notice also one thing that disappeared. Remember just about 2 months ago, how many governments around the world were in peril of toppling because the citizens had all woken up and said, hey, bad economic policy, bad government management, bad everything that you've given us for the last how many years. There was an enormous amount of people wanted change in different continents. And so you don't even hear about anything anymore. Everything that was moving socially to change this planet stopped on a dime. Did you notice that?
Well, pretty much, although I see the French yellow vests are out again.
They're still going,
Thank God for that. Macron is one of these globalists, him and Trudeau and Merkel and Obama. They're all cut out of the same cloth. They are rotten people because they're working for somebody else and not their own people.
I would agree. There's a whole agenda behind the control system here. So
sure is.
At least it's more out in the, now maybe this is a catch-22 here where they think they're going to get more control by locking people down and take control of the economy, pass all these things. But maybe that'll be the opposite of what will happen. Just everybody will suddenly wake up and go, whoa, 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 whoa. Y'all are taking too much. And hey, what happened to all those other things in all the cities? And I'm wondering if the summer, if all these protests will start back up again, and then they'll suddenly have another lockdown again where to stop all the protests. Because it seemed to work at least this first round to get everybody off the social distance. You can't gather in groups. Now you can't discuss politics in groups anymore. Oh, wait, that whole thing, you have 100,000 people in the city wanting change, X, Y, or Z country, 20 of them. Can't do that anymore. It's illegal, right? So.
Yeah, it raises a whole series of civil liberties questions, all right.
Well, it adds a whole bunch of series of social engineering questions as well on how they were able to stop everything on a dime and regain total control of the narrative on the global agenda again when it was so fracturing there at the seams. It thought for sure there'd be a massive light year jump, breakthrough in all this with all these people wanting change, but it seems like the kettle was sealed back up there.
Which leads a lot of people around to the question of how did this virus get loose? And I don't think it's important to spend a lot of time on it. There's no sense fighting the source or finding the source of the disease. We have to treat the social symptoms, the economic symptoms, the government symptoms, the changes that we're going to feel on a local basis. And maybe someday, like with 9/11, maybe someday we'll find out who did it. But in the meantime, we got to deal with the fallout.
And also prepare for less and less food moving forward, you know, and the ramifications for having an entire military complex take control of the entire food production system in a nation. It's all about, forget the money or forget the energy. If you don't have the food, you have neither have any value. It's all about having control of the food first. Then the society can function. No food, no society, period. I don't care how much free energy and free money you give people. If they're lying on the floor because they're too malnourished, then you don't have a functional society. So
yeah, look at Venezuela.
Yeah, look at Venezuela.
Yeah.
So if I were going to control a country or a nation or a planet, I would for sure grab the food supply of an entire planet first and work my way up from there. And it seems that's exactly what's being done right in the same timeline for the intensification of this grand solar minimum. Yeah, so 2024, again, with the planetary alignment, I wonder if there'll be a global liquefaction event or some kind of, you know, squeeze of water or mud out of the Earth's crust with all this electromagnetic changes. The sun's in a real low state, and then we're going to get squeezed by the gas giants straight in the middle of a low sun, no magnetosphere here, and then the gas giants tugging on us. Because the last time it looks like we had one of these lineups was 1,500 years ago, like 575 AD was the last time we get this same kind of square lineup with the planets.
Yeah, that's what's on the cover of my book, is that lineup. And I see a lot of reports of not volcanoes, but earthquakes. Now, Casey has written a book about earthquakes and the grand solar minimum. I don't know if there's good, solid scientific evidence they've increased, but that's something to watch for, because this planetary alignment is what's causing a great deal of the problems with the weather and everything else. And he says it's going to cause earthquakes, volcanoes, and all that stuff. There's some pretty good scientific backup for that. I just don't know if it's true this time or not. So that's something to watch for.
Yeah, I could concur. And the reason I dropped that in is because 2023 is when we're going to really start feeling a lot of these effects. And again, within 2 years, I mean, we're right in that same timeline. So if you were a government body that was going to try to keep your country moving forward, or their country, continuity of government moving forward on a power play, you probably wouldn't wait until the last month before these changes took place before you would start to try to grab control of the food supply. Because as the Earth starts spinning around here at the end of this year, we should get one pass on Jupiter and Saturn, which should be interesting. And then as we come around next year, they really get more in tight formation. And then 2023, we get pulled from the sun into them back, and then 2024 we're square in the middle, both front and back. So when I mean front and back is when we come around in our winter, we're going to be further out from the sun, being tugged by the gas giants. But when we come around into northern hemisphere summer, we're going to be on the other side of the sun by ourselves, with the sun, the four gas giants all in the sandwich square, pulling us into or getting closer. I could imagine the most ferocious, outrageous, unbelievable summer at that point that we've seen in 1,500 years. And also that winter inversely coming into that point. So from right now, there definitely going to be some noticeable changes. Populace needs to be controlled. Food supply needs to be controlled. And guess what happened? The perfect excuse to let it all happen right now, to control everything. Too coincidental, Larry. I'm just not going to go there and say it was all random happenstance.
Convenient little disease.
Not so little, by the way.
Yeah, right. Turned out to be pretty big.
It indeed.
You know, there is a website. I found it when I was writing this book. There is a website where you can punch in a date, any date, and see the alignment of the planets as of that date. And that's where I got the alignment for the cover of the book, because it matches the alignment of the planets in the early 1800s. These planetary alignments certainly have something to do with sunspots and cold weather and so forth. So anyway, for those of your listeners who are curious, go look around, see if you can find that site, and punch in a date or two and see what the planets are going to be doing.
Yeah, I used Solar System Scope back in the day, and then they reverted over to version 2. If you really want to get the good view where they have the planets that look like the planets, not just the dots, you go back to
Yeah.
version 1. And then JPL has another diagram model out there. And you know what? There was another one I was looking at recently, and I forget which one it was. If we're really going to see some things in the heavens with plasma display and plasma arcing, and things on canyon walls that come to life because of all the magnetic and electricity changes between the Earth, the Sun, and the planets. I'm really curious.
Well, it's interesting times, as they say.
It is. And remember, this book, also a new little ice age has started, How to Survive and Prosper During the Next 50 Difficult Years, with practical solutions, no less, available here on Amazon. I'll leave the link in the description box below so you'll be able to go directly there and look at the planetary alignment that indeed is right there in front of you. It's all really in front of us. Plus, we have these comets coming by, the blue K2 that's going to roll through in 2022. Now, a lot of people are saying it's the blue star Kachina of Hopi legend, but we'll see. There's a lot of strange electrical phenomenon with these comets. So that would be expected if our sun's behaving strangely, that the comets would start glowing further out as well. So it seems to match. There's a lot of matching here if you're looking at it from that perspective.
Yeah, these things have been known about for centuries, and yet our leaders didn't bother to mention the sunspot thing and the effect on our planet while they were pushing the global warming lie.
You can't tax the sun.
Yeah, that's right. You can't blame the sun either. It's all a tax and blame game they've been playing with us.
And if you're a good little citizen, you'll get your food.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, David, you're definitely out. You're
not
not
have to
getting
grow my
any
own.
food.
You better get started, right? You too.
Yeah.
At least you got the root cellar up and running.
Yeah, I do, and I'm growing a big garden this year. Yes, sirree.
Yeah. One last question here. With the you were growing last year too. What did you find for the yields coming in? Did you have any declines, or how was your growing condition over the last year comparatively to the last few years?
Not that I could quantify. No.
Okay.
We've had.
That's what I was looking for. Something like gargantuanly less or way big, gargantuanly large or something. Non-quantifiable.
We're in the Gulf Islands, and we're sort of a strange little microclimate. Like the daffodils have been up for a month already here, and in parts of Ontario, they're still shoveling snow. So it's a much different climate in the Gulf Islands, and it's much more conducive to survival in tough times, and that's part of the reason I moved here.
Yeah, like I say, I've seen the future a little bit, being at the right place to jump out in front of these changes. So you're there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks so much. This is a very interesting conversation, and please leave the links in the description box below on, what points resonated with you, what points you thought were solutions-based or true, or what you thought might have been a little fanciful. And some of my comments, like to hear all the different range of what people are thinking comparatively to what we talked about. Larry's books, again, The Art of Fixing Things Part 1, 150 Tips and Tricks to Make Things Last Longer. The link's in the description box below. It's on Amazon, as well as Part 2. And I really want to delve into this insulation. I want to throw the images up there so we can see what that's all about. And then anybody out here listening, how do you think it could be used and coupled with traditional systems or what we have in way of buildings right now? So it's all about a group solution versus just one person thinking of one thing. What does everybody else think? How can we move through this? Because we're all in it together.
We're all in it together. Yeah,
we are,
that's
for sure.
right.
Any last thoughts? Please wrap us up with something deep that we can take to the bank. Well, a digital wallet that'll be issued through the Fed coin, one of those.
David, it's always nice talking to you.
Thanks. That's a great way to wrap it up. Anyway, all the links are in the description box below, and we'll see you next video. Bye-bye for now.